alongside the best, or even the pretty good, platformer
Stop. Hold on, I'll be right back.
6.5 hours later.
I mean, while there are some points that we can agree on, I think Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated was never meant to live up to the incredible standards set by the Spyro Reignited Trilogy. While all three of these games were meant to be complete rebuilds, the team at Purple Lamp used custom tools to extract the models and audio from the original PS2 game, and updated its look and feel to match the current season of SpongeBob while maintaining the authenticity of the original game. For better or worse. Should her head just be floating there right now? Contrasting against that, Spyro Reignited looked at the original models' intentions and made completely new models and audio with updated designs from Toys for Bob. Really, they had to. There was no way that they could keep the original models or even their animations from the original game, feeling like the original game in the modern era. When you think about it, not only is the original review making the wrong comparisons here, it just isn't fair! So let's look at the side-by-side comparisons here. Spyro Reignited is what I would call a reimagining. They're the same game fundamentally, but where the game really shines is in its attention to updating not only the models and animations and environments themselves, but reimagining them how the player imagined them from their childhood, and in my opinion, they did a bang-up job. We're currently playing Spyro Reignited on the channel, and I honestly think that it's the gold standard of remakes. It takes everything we loved about the original and not only brings it into the modern era, it does everything it can to modernize the game. So what exactly were the developers over at Purple Lamp trying to do with Rehydrated? Well, I'll let senior creative producer Mark Crush tell you their exact goal.
We updated, of course, the art style to the way that current also children experience SpongeBob, and we added little hints to newer seasons, little, handsome.
And as always, I will have links to all of the interviews in the description below. So why do this now? Almost 5 years after the release of Rehydrated, why make a review now? Well, with the release of the awesome Titans of the Tide SpongeBob game, and the fact that I don't have a lot of money, it got me nostalgic for the original PS2 game, and in that moment it led me to boot the game back up on the old PS2 and play it, and, well, seeing this... Let's just say it's nice to have the original experience on a brand new engine. So let's look at Bikini Bottom Rehydrated. Aesthetically, the only thing that's really changed here is the look of the models and characters. All the original models and designs remain intact. Sure, there are some things removed from the original model's textures, like the sea shimmer on objects and some lighting effects, but they were replaced with these really cool bubble particles, and honestly, pretty impressive real-time lighting that replaced the baked-in lighting of the original. The point is, this was never supposed to be a reimagining of the original game. It was meant as a way for both new fans and those nostalgic for the original to enjoy the game. On that note, the move to Unreal Engine 4 gave the team a lot of flexibility to make the game look and feel as close to the original as possible, both aesthetically and in the game's animation and programming. And, on that topic, this is more than an aesthetics level of recreation. This is about internals as well. While yes, it's true that they didn't use the original source code from the PlayStation 2, they did, however, re-watch all of the animations to recreate them in Unreal Engine 4 as close as possible to the original. All of this to say that the team at Purple Lamp weren't trying to make a reimagining of the original game. It was always their intent to get as close to the original source material as possible, and update its graphics to meet the aesthetic of the latest season of SpongeBob at the time. In fact, here's an awesome Shack News interview with lead programmer Andreas Lenz explaining how they work to build everything from the ground up with keeping the original vision of the game intact.
Of course, since we're rebuilding everything from the ground up, values change, things are slightly different, but they will pretty much be the same game you'll be playing at the end.
So, if the game was always meant to be a remake of the original on a new engine, why bring IGN's review into this? Why not make it its own review? Well, because at its core, the facts need to be counted before real judgment can be made. I want to defend this piece of PlayStation's history, so I wanted to go over the points one by one in IGN's original video to see for myself. Were they right? Was IGN really being unfair? Or was it truly just a simple matter of comparing apples to oranges? And before we start, I wish no ill will to the reviewer or to IGN itself. This video is only meant to counterpoint, in a professional way, a lot of things that I found downright odd to compare, given the intention behind the creation of SpongeBob Rehydrated. And you'll even find that I agree with quite a lot of points. there are just some points that stuck out to me as kind of odd. So, one of the first things the review mentioned was that the game didn't feel optimized for first-timers, nor was it modernized for folks who look back on the game fondly. Now, I never finished the original on the PS2, I got as far as the Mermalair rollerball level and just kinda gave up. That said, I think that while I agree that the game's camera could use work, I mean, it occasionally got stuck on things, would wig out at the slightest collider box, and generally had little control, coupled with the simplified control scheme, lends itself perfectly to those looking for a traditional PS2 platforming experience. It's not elegant, but it's simple and easy to understand, and the accessibility to me is nice to see, even with the jank aside. Now, on the topic of controls, we can actually agree here. I think that SpongeBob and Patrick perform beautifully, and I never felt like I missed any jumps because of their animation states. And bringing it around to the original point that the IGN reviewer made about the controls not being updated for modern audiences, again, it was never meant to be. This is meant to be a one-to-one recreation of the PlayStation 2 game. I feel like a lot of people that would play this game, that played the original PS2 game, would actually prefer it to have the original control scheme versus a newer control scheme. The original camera versus the new camera. While quality of life updates belong in games like this, I feel like preserving this as a piece of history is more important than trying to update it for a modern audience. But back on the topic of aesthetics, the next thing that was mentioned is that the color and designs of the game are built to mirror the show itself, which, and they didn't mention this, I feel that lends itself to a more timeless look. He says that it makes the game look like a generation behind, but I wholeheartedly disagree. Rehydrated's visuals were never meant to be mind-blowing. They were meant to update what already existed. You're renovating a building here, you're not building a new house. The animations, the voice acting, the models, like everything was pulled from the original PS2 design Bible and recreated in Unreal Engine with care to update the graphics and effects to give it what I lovingly call a retro-modern appeal. The sound design in this game is actually really good. Even in the original PS2's release, the sound design was actually really good, and it made you feel like you were in an episode of SpongeBob. And oh my gosh, the dialogue in this game. I mean, it's not as bad as I remember on the PS2 version, but they spout 3 to 4 lines per level, and you hear them again and again and again, and it just gets old.
I make myself a snack, but there's no time! I make myself a snack, but there's no time! I make myself a...
But, again, I think that lends itself to them modeling this game after the original model of the PS2. They could have made the dialogue happen less often, but the goal here was to emulate that PS2 experience with modern hardware. And, on the topic of voices and things that could have been done, where the heck is Clancy Brown? This is not my beautiful crab! Who is this?
Help me get rid of that no-good robot. I'll give you a big reward.
Who are you? So let me get into the biggest sticking point before we wrap this up, and one of the reasons I wanted to include this critique from the original IGN review. From the original IGN review.
But in a platformer still meant to be enjoyed today, I have to ask, why do I have to keep trudging back to a specific location to switch characters, instead of just quick swapping with a button?
The answer's actually pretty simple. In both Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated and the original PS2 game, the levels themselves were built around specific characters to solve challenges. If they added the ability to hop-swap characters at a whim, it would break the flow of the puzzles. Compounding this problem would be completing puzzles out of the original order, and honestly, that's something developers could never have intended the player to do. Hi, Future Kayla here. After completing both the Kelp Forest and the Kelp Cave sections... Oh, yeah, no, I agree. I've actually changed my opinion on this. There should be some sort of hot swapping. With the release of Titans of Tide and Cosmic Shake, they did manage to add polish, and they even managed to add that very same hot swapping system. Look, I can only speculate here, but I believe it was a combination of them not wanting to break the mold of the established Bikini Bottom as the classic that it was, paired with budget constraints again. Alright, let's wrap this up because I feel like I'm getting a little long in the tooth here. Look, IGN felt that there were issues that could have been tweaked and brought up to snuff for the modern era, and I couldn't disagree more here. At the very center of this game is the original PS2 game. It's in its blood, it's in its DNA, it's in everything about it, which was the point. And given that we got not only Cosmic Shake, but also the amazing Titans of Tide game that came out recently, I feel like this game was not only meant to be a love letter to the original game, I feel like it was meant to be the foundations through which future SpongeBob games are built upon. So look, we don't do scores around here. I simply lay the facts out, and while I agree with some of the points brought up, I feel it was an unfair comparison to bring Spyro Reignited into this at all. A more fair comparison, honestly, would have been the original PS2 counterpart to show just how much the game's grown both aesthetically and technically, and stayed the same, not out of some outdated sense of cutting corners. In my personal opinion, I think that those nostalgic for a blast from the past can enjoy and laugh at this game when it comes to the classic PS2 jank. So, what did you all think of it when it released back in 2020? Was it worth the $30? Did you get it on a discount? Let me know in the comments below.